Good morning, friends. So, we have a lot to discuss, but we have a double header this morning, myself followed by Rabbi Fahi, because of the tremendous chut of Yom HaAtzmaut, that we have the privilege of learning Torah together on. We're going to talk about one word today. This word is so important. I don't know, but it could be the most common word in the Torah. We need to understand it. However, the entire parsha this week actually is called by this word. And the word is Emor, Le'emor, Amira. The parsha itself is called Emor. What exactly is this word? And why is the parsha that kind of emphasizes this word focused towards the Kohanim? Well, let's have a look. First of all, everyone knows the famous pasuk, Vaydaber or Vayomer, Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe le'emor. God spoke to Moshe saying, there seems to be a redundancy, my dear friends, in those words. Vaydaber means to say, to speak, el Moshe le'emor, which also means to say or to speak.
But maybe to speak to other people.
Okay, maybe to speak to other people, but why not use the same word twice? Daber el Moshe, Daber b'nei Yisrael. Why does it change the lashon from dibur to amira? This parsha actually doubles the whole concept. Vayom Hashem el Moshe, Emor el hakohanim b'nei Aaron, va'amarta lehem. There it is again. L'nefesh lo yitama b'amav. Don't go and defile yourself, contaminate yourself to a dead person. These are halachot that are specific to Kohanim. Kohanim are a goy, but they're a nation within our nation. They have special rules and regulations that apply to them and to them only. And yet this word emor is kind of doubled down in order to speak to them specifically. What does this word actually mean? So we have to start with the very important difference between dibur and emor. And I've got a lot to say on this. When I describe to the difference, it should resonate with you very, very deeply. So there's two interpretations that I know of. Vaydaber Hashem Moshe, God spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu with lashon dibur. Dibur, says the Gemara, is a lashon kasha kegidin. It's tough. It's hard. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke and gave the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu, he didn't do it with nice sweetness. He didn't offer him a drink first of all. He didn't buy him flowers and chocolates. He went straight in and said, this is the law. We got to do this. That's lashon dibur, and the word itself dibur, dab, right? It's very, very hard. Dabraniot, yeah. Kashe kegidin, hard like sinews. He's given it over, and he's whacking these Torah ideas into Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, had the pasuk ended then, you would have thought that Moshe Rabbeinu would follow the same routine that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did when he gave the Torah to us. He would be like, you better do this, and you better halacha, and you better halacha, we're all going to die. And he would just use that primarily to transmit the Torah to Am Yisrael and Klal Yisrael. However, the pasuk changes and says, Daber el Moshe, v'amata lehem, like over here, it says, lemor, saying. Now, lemor is nice, it's sweet, it's soft, it's lashon, even the word emor, it's not daber, it's emor, saying. One interpretation is that the pasuk gave permission to Moshe Rabbeinu to tell what Hashem was telling him to tell the Jewish people. Why? Is there a possibility maybe that Hashem would say something to Moshe Rabbeinu that he shouldn't say? Very possibly. There could be private conversations between them that we are not notified and informed of, and those are not recorded in the Torah because they are none of our business. However, every time it says Emor, it means you, Moshe Rabbeinu, have full permissibility, reshut, to give over what I'm telling you to the Jewish people, and they're going to tell their children, and they're going to tell their children. It's going to carry on Mikol Dorot for all the generations ad Biyat HaMashiach Mashiach comes. That is one interpretation. The other interpretation is when you give Torah over to the next generation, you have to do it with kindness and sweetness. Darche noam When we give Torah over to our children or to our students, it should be done sweetly and nicely. That does not mean that it should be trivial. That does not mean that they shouldn't understand the tremendous importance and achrayut that they have for giving over the Torah. That is a given. I grew up in a generation, my dear friends, where this was the post-Holocaust generation. It wasn't trendy to be Sephardi when I was growing up. I'll be honest with you, if you were Sephardi when I was growing up, you were pretty much a second-class citizen. Let's be honest, it's just the way it was. You know, the Ashkenazim had full control of the Torah world. I went to a very, very Haredi yeshiva. We had many Sephardim, but they all found themselves in the lowest classes. And the Ashkenaz, I was one of them unfortunately, and the Ashkenazim Haredim who ran the yeshiva, I don't know what had happened to them, but as children of Holocaust survivors, or maybe Holocaust survivors, I remember one teacher I had, she was a female teacher, when I was very young, she was very, very old. They came from a generation where you just had to do it. Why? Because I said so. But give me an explanation. No, this is what we do. You follow Torah, you do mitzvot, or in that case, you follow Torah, you do mitzvos, and that's the end of it. There was no questioning. If you questioned, you got a whack. You got a zetz. If you asked any question at all, it was all lashon dibur. Now, I'm going to assume that worked for them and maybe their parents. Maybe they were at a level where they were able to give over Torah with a whack, with a form of dibur and not amira. However, we know that it did not transfer well. It did not transfer well, unfortunately. And a lot of kids in my generation went off the derech, went OTD. Everyone knows what OTD is? Off the derech. Even if they were FFB from birth, although many of them were FFH from habit, unless they became BT, Bale Teshuvah, or ZBT, zealous Bale Teshuvah, or worse of the worst, FBT, flaming Bale Teshuvah. These are the people. These are the people who feel it is their job, even if they became religious yesterday, they learn one halakha to preach to you, to talk to you, and tell you everything you're doing wrong. I've been surrounded by many such people who unfortunately know nothing about Torah mitzvot, and yet they feel it's their job and their position to illuminate the entire world with their knowledge and their righteous behavior. This form of teaching, this form of acting is not the Torah way. There are people among our nation who do have the authority to give over Torah in this way, but even Moshe Rabbeinu, the Pasukim are telling us, was told, when you teach Torah, do it benachat, do it respectfully, do it kindly, do it with a smile on your face. The post-Holocaust generation, my dear friends, didn't have that. They were not able, because of their challenges and their sorrows. Every piece of Torah always came with a smack. If it wasn't physical, it was emotional, it was psychological. And from my generation, many yeshiva boys that I grew up with in this very Haredi Ashkenazi yeshiva that I was part of, they didn't enjoy Torah. Torah left a very, very bitter taste in their mouth. I'll mention as a side point that I live in a neighborhood, and the neighborhood next to my neighborhood is full of ex-Hasidim. This is a new phenomenon that I never saw growing up. But there is a whole world of what's called ex-Hasidim. And I'm fascinated with them. They are fascinating me, just on a sociological and psychological level. Even after they become less Hasidic, which by the way is very hard for them. For people like that, so you think to yourself, what's the big deal? You grew up Hasidic, right? You had the long coat on, you had the belt, right? You had the furry hat. right, which many of them grow up with, then you know what, just do something else. Right? Just become modern Orthodox, go live in Teaneck or something, or go live in the outskirts community. They find it very, very difficult to recalibrate their lives. And many of them actually want to have a religious life. I'm not talking about the people who are completely devoid, right, who get tattoos and buy a dog and a television. I'm not talking about them. Most of them do not want to do, most of them actually want to find some kind of middle ground. They find this middle ground very difficult to attain. And I've spoken to them. Many of their children end up in my kids' class. And the kids even tell me that in their home, it was all or nothing. The analogy which I use is driving on the Autobahn in Germany. The Autobahn in Germany is you can go any speed you want. There is no speed limit. You can go 80 miles an hour. You can go 100. In your car, right, the dial goes to 160. And I'm thinking to myself, what's the point of that? Who cares? You can't use it because the people in Germany, they can use it. So the statisticians tell us that actually, according to statistics, there are much fewer collisions on the Autobahn. Much fewer accidents. These people who can go any speed limit, there's much fewer accidents. However, when there is an accident, it's a complete fatality. You're gone. You're done. Right? When two cars hit each other at 130, you're done. You're hitting the median on the Autobahn at 150 miles an hour. There's not much left except road pizza. You know what I'm saying? I see these people exactly the same way. They are going 150 miles an hour. It happens to be that the people who fall off is probably much less than other areas. But when they go off, whoa, they're going right off. You don't recognize it. However, there is a name which I know many of them don't like, but we call them tuna bagels. Heard this expression before? It may be a little pejorative, so I want to apologize. But they're tuna bagels because they can take off the hat, they can take off the black coat, they can take off the garter, they can take off all the paraphernalia, and yet they still have the voice, right? They still say tuna bagel, right? They still talk with that accent. So no matter what they do in life, I meet them in the streets, I talk to them, and they're like, yeah, and they have no yarmulke, and they're completely gone, and they talk to you like, Monroe, right? Like, how do you know? I said, I could tell. It kind of give it away, right? Curious Yoel. He goes, how do you know? I goes, I can tell.
What neighborhood are you talking about?
Well, what?
Where do you live?
I live in Monsey, New York, in a place called Wesley Hills, and there is a neighborhood right next to us where they kind of want to congregate together. They have this great cultural, if not religious, affinity one to another, and therefore they kind of get together. And by the way, they're very real people. How did they get to this point?
Are they Haredim or Hasidim?
No, they do not. They are ex-Hasidim, and they will join either modern Orthodox communities or regular yeshiva communities. Many of them go completely off. However, if you talk to them, there is one commonality. One commonality. When they grew up, they're banim in that community, and by there's a shift, even in the Hasidic world, that they're moving away from this, that they were told, if you do anything other than what we tell you, you are a goy. You're gone. You're not part of the community. Let me give you an example. They say that if you take off your garter, your black belt that they wear when they pray, if you take that off, you might as well eat chazir. You might as well eat pig. That's the way they're told. They're literally told, if you take that off, you're the same as... That's not halakha. There's no halakha to wear this belt around your coat, but in their mind's eye, it is. So most don't take it off. But once you take that off, and you're like, it's uncomfortable, I don't buy into it, then might as well, if I'm doing that, I might as well do everything else. I was approached many years ago. I can't tell you from which community, because they told me not to say. But a group of Hasidim who are actually high up in their community came to our outreach classes, and they sat in there. These are the heads of the community, the religious people. And they sat in with us, and they said, we're here to understand how you teach Baalei Teshuvah, how you relate to these people, because we're seeing that there is a great attrition, there's a great loss in our community of these young men and women who are leaving the fold because the way that we used to teach them isn't applicable. And they have alternatives now. They see what's out there, and they hide their phones, and they hide their magazines, and they hide the Torah, and it's become too difficult to keep them in. So we can focus on the 80, 90%, but that 10% in our community is a very big amount. It's a very, very big amount. I know in the secular world, there's a 50 to 80% intermarriage rate, and they're gone, dayenu, lo aleinu. But in their community, it's a growing phenomena. My friends, it stems from what we're discussing in this week's parasha, which is what? Which is when you teach Torah, it's got, in our generation, maybe the previous generations it wasn't like this. Believe in Hashem. Why? Because I said so. Okay. It's not working. My friends, it is not working. They want to know why they have to do it. They have the how, and the when, and the what. Our generation needs the why. Why do I have to act like this? Why do I have to wear this extra belt? If you want to do it, fine. But give an explanation, but you've got to do it with love. Why was this lesson of Amirah focused on the Kohanim? Why is this week's parasha, Man Ishtana HaParasha Hazot Mikol HaParashiyot, that it comes to Emor, very good, that it comes to Emor is now being focused on the Kohanim, because people don't realize the Kohanim, historically speaking, weren't just the ones who were called out first to the Torah, right, for an Aliyah. They weren't the people who got to say Birchat HaMazon first. They weren't the people that, used to walk in front of everyone else. These people, my friends, were the people who were in charge of teaching Torah to the Jewish people, especially the children. That actually traditionally was the job of the Kohanim. And therefore the Torah goes out of its way to name the parasha Emor, so that you talk to the children with Lashon Amirah. You've got to say it nicely. You want to shout to them to do their math homework, their algebra, their calculus, to go to school, to get up, no problem. But when it comes to Torah, there's one thing that we have a tradition, Emusora, which is you can be firm, you can be exacting, and you can be tough, but at the same time, you must be loving. Teach Torah not with dibor, but with Amirah. Hashem should bless us all with the ability to hand over the Torah with loving kindness, with a hug, and not with a hit. The same way Moshe Rabbeinu was able to give over Torah at Har Sinai. As we said, this breakfast and class should be in loving memory of Leonard Lo, alav shalom, because for a little nishmat, Areh ben Natan Alevi, alav shalom, for his 31st yahrzeit, L'chaim Tovim Shalom. You should continue, B'ezrat Hashem, your Torah to your children, your grandchildren, God willing, Dorot Ad Biat HaMashiach. You should continue being a great role model, especially the great whiskey you brought in, because you didn't cheap out today and we appreciate it. L'chaim Tovim, Ola Shalom. I already made a bracha. Hazak Baruch.